I've kept a time record out here. So we are live on YouTube. So yeah, a very warm good evening to one and all listening to this Wow Wednesday session. I, Dr. Devanshu Srivastava, the head for the Jagran School for Public Policy and International Affairs at Jagran University, welcomes you to this 19th edition of the Words of Wisdom, the Wow Wednesday. And just to come across, we have someone today who I am very excited personally because he comes from the same legal background and then heading this public policy domain of one of the renowned media broadcasting agencies, not only of India, but exactly of the world as well. So the guest for today is Mr. Rajkumar Varier. And I'll just take a minute to introduce our speaker to this wonderful audience. Rajkumar sir, we have been joined and fortunate that we have today with us Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Sandeep Shastri sir. We have been joined by the faculties. We have been joined by the young policy minds, as I have been calling them. I've stopped calling them students anymore. So they are just the young policy minds in making. And so today's speaker for us, Mr. Rajkumar Varier, is a law graduate from Delhi University. He's a corporate lawyer and currently working as the head of the public policy and the regulatory affairs in ABP News and ABP Creations. He has previously worked with Star India as the General Group Counsel, Samsung India Ltd, Bharti Airtel Ltd, to name a few. He led the litigation, IPR, and the customer services in Samsung India Ltd. A corporate lawyer with over 20 plus years of experience in cross-cultural, multi-business, and multinational environment. An energetic self-starter with exceptional analytical, organizational, leadership, and creative skills, with a talent for evaluating problems, developing and simplifying procedures, and finding innovative solutions. Earlier, heading the legal department in the Den Networks Limited, a conglomerate of around 150 JVs, the leading business being the MSO cable distribution business. Also into the broadband, tele-retail, through Snapdeal JV, and owns a football team, the Delhi Dynamos. The issues handled ranges from the ranging of complexes, contracts, mergers and acquisitions, litigation, sports law, taxation, regulatory compliances, and whatnot. Recently, he was also awarded with the Rising Star Award by the Legal Era. Prior to this, he was heading or leading the litigation in the IPR at the customer service with the Samsung India Ltd. Took the challenge coupled with a desire for change and with blessed with the opportunity of working in the world-class global company, which belonged to a new industry never ever experienced for. He has handled litigation and regulatory investigations for Bharti Airtel Ltd as well, headed and responsible for the legal and the compliance function for the Airtel DTH, Airtel Money, VAS businesses throughout India, and engaged in the senior level and top management decision making. The playing role of driving industry level issues and the OSS and face for the telecom industry on all litigation and contentious issues. With this introduction, which was really a breathtaking one, I invite Rajkumar sir to address the wonderful gathering today and to deliver his words of wisdom for the young policy minds out here. Rajkumar sir, over to you.
Thank you, Devanshu, for that. I don't know how much I deserve of that introduction, but thank you so much. And I'm really thankful that you invited me here. And, it's always a pleasure to connect with, go back to your college days and connect with the students. And, in fact, I studied in an evening law college and I could see many people having, especially those senior people. It's an evening law college, so mostly used to have senior IAS officials, custom officials, or even some of the judicial members who were not law graduates pursuing law. And I could see, and that, I can relate to those things, that how exciting it was to spend time with young minds and young aspiring students of any subject, whatever. And law was the only subject which could offer, which could be offered as a course for even those who missed out on some academic sphere at a later stage. So, it's really an honor. And today's topic, what is given to me, is about the career possibilities. So, career possibilities in the public policy domain. Now, if we actually see public policies generally defined. There is no, sorry. There is no specific definition as such, but what's being defined once by Justice Burrow is that it's an unruly horse. And if you decide to take a ride on it, then you don't know where it's going to take you, where you are going to head towards. And the good part is that there is a, I have ridden this horse throughout in my span, the 20 years career, without any license or without any qualification on the subject. And it's really good to see that now we are going to have aspiring licensed holders who's going to ride this unruly horse and will be representing different sectors, or maybe the government, or maybe some global body, and will be taking taking things to a direction which will ultimately govern the way the society, the laws, and the entire ecosystem of business, it gets governed with. So since you have made this choice, I will say it's definitely my experience throughout in some form or the other has been with public policy issues only. And these are really interesting, really challenging issues. I started my career as a lawyer, and as a lawyer, you always think that you are going to be more used to adversarial form of litigation or issues where there can be a civil dispute or a contractual dispute, or any other criminal issues, things like that. But it was always a surprise, and I joined a law firm which was specializing into telecom laws, and it was a only law firm which was dealing with it, the chambers of Mr. Ramji Srinivasan. And that's my first introduction to the policy, the way the policy gets evolved. And it was, since it was dealing with telecom, the entire thing of anything starts from insofar as the telecom is concerned, started with the privatization of the telecom sector. And once the government parted with its exclusive privilege, what it only could have done, it wanted to also have certain set of controls. And why it is called as evolving? Because the decision what you take today will surely have some positive consequences. You never take the decision in the assumption that it will go bad for the society, or it will be affecting certain set of stakeholders and all that. But as things progress, we always come to know that things do not remain the same forever. Change is the only constant, and that's the reason it needs to be addressed and dealt with in a proper manner. And all those initial teething problems followed by side effects, and all that needs to be dealt with in an appropriate manner. And that's how the policy works. So when the privatization happened, the sector was first opened for the mobile services, and we had a regime of a duopoly then. Duopoly means only two operators would compete. If the licenses was first given only to be tested in the metros. Now interested bidders came in, they ended up bidding, they overbid. They thought they will be able to make big money out of it, since they are going to enjoy the same kind of privilege which under the Telegraph Act only the government could have enjoyed. They overbid, and ultimately it was realized that no, what they have overbid, they cannot afford to pay. And then the sector started failing gradually. So then came the policy decision that now we need to bring a change. We need to deal with this. The sector is going to suffer. There is a lot of disputes which happen between the government and the private operators. It can no longer be governed by those contractual principles, because if we go strictly by the contract, then the sector would have gone for a toss. That's why the policy change happened in the form of a policy, which is the new telecom policy, and a migration package was then announced for the sector, wherein it was bargained that all the license fee, that up to a certain date of that outstanding license fee, whatever is being due, that would be paid as a compensation. And the privilege of being in a duopoly will be bargained to a sector of multipoly, and wherein more number of operators can come, there will be more competition. and from a fixed license fee to a revenue share license fee. And so this is something which happened during the tenure of 95 to 99, when I was pursuing my law, and I was, after 3 years of my law, I was trying to find out what exactly I should be doing as a lawyer. And it was in 2000 that I joined the chambers of Mr. Srinivasan, and that's when a new decision came in, and by which time the sector had been opened up for not only mobile telephony, it had opened up for fixed telephony, privatization of fixed telephony, and then slowly a decision came in when these were independent licenses, that a decision came in that why not let's allow some amount of mobility to the fixed line guys also. So they said, all right, a decision of WLL happened, and WLL, the wireless in local loop, this it is providing mobile services within a limited service area, which is called as a short distance charging area. So where private basic operators, the fixed line operators, were allowed to provide mobile telephones. That became a big subject of challenge. In fact, it's been called as the mother of all litigation. And I could represent the fixed line operators who were allowed to enter into that terrain. That point, it was argued. The arguments which were developed were to the effect of, this is a march of technology, and technology should not be stopped. It should be entertained. Licensing restrictions should not come. Whereas mobile operators who had bid higher, they had a different reason. They said that we have paid higher fee. There has to be some comparison. There can't be any backdoor entry to this particular thing. So whatever benefits one section, or is a decision taken for one section of the industry, definitely has concerns for the other section of the industry. So I've been mostly into the industrial dispute. So you have a chance. So this is the opportunity where you can represent one or the other side of the sector and see which way you can take the policy. And ultimately, if you see the outcome of this litigation, it turned out that there was a unified access service license policy which finally came into effect, wherein both services could be provided under one head, and it could be provided under one single license, and you didn't need, you never wanted that different licenses for all that. So that's the entire journey. If you actually see the way a policy evolves, so there is a lot of it's your advocacy, it's your arguments which you put forward, and so the understanding of all three elements, all three pillars, that is legislation, executive, and the judiciary. Since I represented the judiciary, I could see the entire flow of decision making, and that's what a public policy professional should know, that how the decision making should happen. Because if anything goes wrong in the way a decision making is done, then it can always suffer from the arguments of that it was a non-transparent decision. It has not followed this fairness, very reasonableness. These are arbitrary. This is to suit somebody. This is to the disadvantage of some others. Equities are being created. And all this remains the broad parameter. So you need to ensure, as a policy maker, or being the part of the public policy campaign of any subject, that a decision making happens in the right way and it heads towards the right direction. It's, in a way, it's that horse which you need to know how to tame, how to control, and how to bring it to your advantage. That's how the entire thing should flow. So my 14 years, I could witness that how telecom evolved, whether, I was witness to all those license spectrum scams, whatever was being alleged during those days, when the rates of 2001 was given in 2008, and then there was an allegation of a scam. Ultimately, it turned out that it was not a scam, but the consequence was that the people who invested, who suffered, they had to go to jail, and ultimately they had to suffer the consequences of those policy. And sometimes courts also have gone a little overboard, that that they could have actually addressed needs of that industry instead of taking any. They should understand what is exactly. So so you need to be a business lawyer. if I actually see, when I joined Airtel, I remember these decisions, and the day I joined, within about a week, I used to have a very junior position, and I could meet and sit with the promoters, because it was really the matter of important concern for them, because ultimately the entire business was governed on those things. So if what I came to know, that it's always a promoter, it's entrepreneur mindset, it is a business mindset which ultimately determines that which way the policy should go, and these are the people who fight, and that's what exactly you get the opportunity. So if either you can become an entrepreneur in your own sense and take the risk of investing money if you have, or you get investors, come up with an idea and become a Flipkart or a Oyos of the world and become an entrepreneur like that. Or you can be, and all of them definitely need a policy brain, a public policy brain, and which is the strength of this subject, that if you know how exactly one should approach the government, how exactly the advocacy needs to be done, how you can voice your opinion, how you can protect your business interest, that will be the governing factor for you to be an attractive proposition and a commodity in the market as a public policy professional, and you can catch the eye of any entrepreneur and and command a price for whatever you deserve. So that's insofar as my journey in Airtel is concerned. Now, then, of course, as time progressed, I joined another sector, which is the media sector. And again, the most important thing which you always relish and which becomes a matter of interest, because you see that benefits have ensued to the sector which you represented. You always feel good about it, that, oh, ultimately there is something which I have given back to that sector also. And that's exactly the kind of work which you want to do, which you always feel that, yeah, I have been part of this. Like, I'm sure people who were framers of the constitution, even today they are named that so and so argued this. Today we go back to those debates, people who participated. So the people who were involved in the making of that constitution, the kind of feeling which you get, that you were part of the process and you had some contributions to make, some of which were taken. This point was made by me and ultimately it got accepted. Maybe for the organization, maybe ultimately in the law, or the way things shaped up. It always gives you that joy. So there is definitely, a joy which, a kick which you get when you feel that, the important frontline pages issues were something which you were working on and which you were part and parcel of. It's also a joy sometimes to read the language which you crafted in those reports, that what you said is now exactly what is getting reflected. So the joy is in experiencing it, and I think since it is open, and these are the skill sets which this course, whatever is the subjects which would be offered, I don't know which are the subjects which are going to get offered in this, but this is exactly what these are the skill set which one should possess and one should take interest on. Now, coming to the media sector. Before I come to the media sector, one more thing, like see, lot of decision making done by the government is done, with the mindset that it should only benefit the government, or it should only with some revenue motives, like the AGR definition, the revenue share which came in the telecom thing, like the AGR definition, that was an unnecessary litigation which went on for such a long time. Neither the government gave up, nor the sector gave up, because ultimately it was actually an unreasonable thing. It is unreasonably being imposed upon the sector. And it's an unfortunate part that ultimately even the courts held in favor of government. It took strictly as a contractual dispute. It shouldn't have been the case, because if you say that, what was the definition of this AGR? That if the telecom revenue is to be calculated, it is to be on the basis of the revenues of telecom, not any other revenue. There has to be freedom to do anything else apart from telecom. It can't be a blame that I am a telecom operator does not mean I'm not entitled to do other businesses. And the fear was that all those revenues will get added and share will have to be paid, which is over and above your taxes, over and above your CSR obligations, over and above your other cost of providing the services and everything. So it was a revenue share. Forget about it. It's not a profit share. It used to be a revenue share. So that's why the hit was high. It used to be a cost. And ultimately, government themselves realized that if we are really going to insist upon this kind of unreasonable thing, and now of course, it has changed. The philosophy has changed that, all right, now over a period of time, you make those payments. So a growing sector got impacted because of such decision making. And now there's a fear with the government also that even if I take a decision in favor of the industry, it might turn out to be, and there might be an allegation of a scam, or it might be alleged as something to favor some particular side of sector. So that mindset needs to change, and there has to be more openness, and that's the future. That's the future of policy, which we need to head towards, that where we can have a transparent discussion with the government and without any fear that if you are doing something, because ultimately the basic principle is common good and public good. What is good for everyone and the society as a whole. It can't be that it is only suiting one set of, we are a democratic society. It has to be for the benefit of everyone. It has to be for the benefit of the person who has worked, who has invested. There has to be some return to that person. It can't be that, he's deprived of, or he's being fooled for having made an effort or having made investments to those sites. So now, in the media sector, when I joined, digitization phase was almost getting completed. It was on the phase of it, and the expectation of bearing the cost of digitization was cast upon the cable operators. We call it a bigger cable operator, which is an MSO. So the MSOs were required to make investment of digitization, wherein they had to invest a huge amount of money on the network to have addressable systems, to have set-top boxes, so that every home, because the biggest curse for the cable industry was underreporting. And underreporting meant there was a loss to the government exchequer as well. So the entire objective was that digitization has to happen. But the disadvantage which the cable sector faced was because of the nature of the tariff structure which prevailed, and because of the price of content which was being put upon them by the broadcasters, and which they were required to sell and find a buyer in the form of a customer. And wherein they were somewhere in between a cable operator and the broadcaster, and their returns for those investments were never coming. So ultimately, the only objective for that MSO sector was that there has to be a tariff scheme wherein there is an assured return which should come to their pocket for the cost of digitization which they have incurred. Now that was given. So when we worked on that policy, ultimately a policy of TRA policy came in. There was an open house consultation process, and that's the process generally everyone follows. There was a participation. The comments are received, given, and that's where you get your chance as a public policy professional to show that why that sector deserves to be compensated. And the regulation should be formulated or structured in this particular manner. And that's how you put across your business case or a commercial case or the policy case, or which is for public good also. Because it can't happen that somebody who's invested, he doesn't get paid. Ultimately, your objective is not to kill him for some good what he has done and having achieved the objectives of whatever that the digitization policy was. And which finally resulted in a guaranteed network capacity fee coming in the regulations of the TRAI, and which definitely ensured that there is a fixed return, a fixed ARPU, which is coming to those operators, and which they could have gradually used not only for running their businesses, but also to invest for expansion of the broadband business, because it is those cable wires which have the potential today to provide broadband as well. So it is if you see the business, that how all I can be more useful, and how I should be also fairly compensated for my efforts, or whichever sector you're representing. If you're able to develop arguments on that count, you will see the fruits of the said results and coming from the regulator or the government, whichever way it will be. By that time, I got a shift to Another company where there were some other issues which was connected with this issue, wherein if someone gets benefited, somebody else has got a loss. So I could represent Star, and then the issue there was that because of this particular tariff order which guaranteed a network capacity fee, there was a burden of tariff fixation of the channel or of channel pricing. That the channel price, because as a content creator, the broadcaster always wants to be paid for the content which he creates. Now he wants to command a price on that. But what happens if the government or the regulator starts regulating that price? So the channel pricing, the freedom of pricing became a big issue, and which was fought. Ultimately, it's a different matter that the battle was lost. It's not that broadcasters don't get paid, but the ultimate, see, it was more on a principle point that if the content is owned by me, I should be able to decide the price at which I want to sell it. It has to, you think it from the perspective that, you know, a Shah Rukh Khan will command the price whatever he wants. If he's the content giver and if the cost of the entire production is this, the production house should be able to command the price at which it wants to sell the movie to the distributors or the broadcaster, maybe the satellite rights, maybe the digital rights and various other rights, whatever. So you have to think it from the business side which you are representing, and come up with solution and arguments which will justify that you deserve to get that relief as a policy decision from the government, from the regulations, or if nothing works out, then ultimately from a court of law. So that is what the skill set which one develops gradually. I developed it as a lawyer. You will have the advantage, and you have the edge in knowing to know about different sectors and how things have evolved over there. And please ensure to read everything, anything and everything, to see how exactly the entire decision making has worked, because these are the precedents which will come to your rescue and to come to your defense when you deal with issues which will come in the future. So like that, now I represent a news broadcaster, and there are multiple issues which, the good part is the sector which I did not see much action in my earlier days is the sector where I see maximum action. And there is no dearth for issues on any sector. I always have a lot of issues to handle. Now today there are the biggest of all, you must be reading it newspaper every day. The IT rules are there, right? Wherein everyone is impacted in one way or the other, whether it is the social media intermediary, whether it is the digital news broadcaster or digital news publisher, or whether it is original curated content producer. So there are various issues which we are taking up with the government also. There are some issues which have been filed in the court. And then there is, you also get opportunity to represent on various legislations which are happening. Whether it's the Copyright Act, now insofar as my sector is concerned, there is Copyright Act amendments which are happening. There is labor law amendments which are happening. There are issues of freedom of press which is getting discussed. That where do we stand in our ranking? We stand far behind. How do we bring up the rating? The data protection laws, the gaming laws, evolving of gaming laws, the recent precedents which we have seen in Australia, European Union, where the news broadcasters were to be compensated for the news content, and to have a similar legislation in our country, efforts towards that. So there is a lot to do for any sector which you represent. Yesterday, I was just watching that Nestle now is again surrounded in a controversy. There was earlier a controversy of that Maggie, and think of the perception which gets developed that it's the favorite food enjoyed by all of us, but it is the most unhealthy of all, option of all. At a point, there was a perception which created, and you could see all the counters, all the stores, that nobody dared to pick a pack of Maggie, and you need to get over that perception. That's the role of a policy individual, that how you work towards getting over that perception. Now, Nestle guys need to work that 70%. They have got a big job to do in the coming 2-3 years. So you have to think from that industry perspective, whichever you represent, and see where you can take it in next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So when you finish your course, when you get an opportunity to be interviewed, and please ensure that you are well prepared and well read about that industry in the limited time that you get from the point you applied and the date you called for the interview and the date of the interview. that you read everything about it. Show your, if you don't have the interest, you won't be able to pursue. And it's not only that the interest should end at the point when you qualify for the interview. The interest should continue till the time you are there in that sector. And you must read everything. And today, since the literature is so huge, you have something or the other. The internet is the moment you start reading about one set of news, you will find similar news on all such or related issues, and you're well connected to every information. Earlier, we had to wait for a SCC. We had to take the trouble of opening a case law or read some business magazines, which were not affordable then. And we didn't have that many mediums, but today you are exposed to so much literature. So ensure that you follow a news from beginning till end, and especially you are able to comment, and you need to show yourself promising that yes, if the way you present yourself, the way you sell yourself as a person who really can help into the entire thing, there you find your prize, that yes, you can be a successful public policy professional. In schools also now some curriculums have started in the form of some activities like MUN, Model United Nations. My daughter participates in all that. Now sometimes she gets a country which is a third world country, but we should not be upset about which sector, which stakeholder we are representing. The only quality which we need to develop is that we should be able to think about the best interest of that client, whomsoever that stakeholder is. And we have to start thinking. We have to only say, for us as public policy professionals, our only God is our client, or as lawyers. Because I've seen, and if anyone has a difficulty in that, the reason being, I'm telling you this because I'm not naming the company, but there are some people who say, I didn't like their final objective. Because if that troubles your mind, then you may definitely find a difficulty, because if you are not able to live that this is important for my company, my business, and my business is important for my daily livelihood, then you won't be able to do well in that. You need to think, you need to be very neutral. Ultimately, your role is that of a professional, your interest is to take the concerns of your client, and how you take it forward, how you advance his business interest, how you advance the overall way. And you actually see no one is unreasonable. No, even a businessman is never unreasonable. You will always represent a person who wants a fair return upon the investment, and should be able to survive. And it should not happen that competition or any other thing comes to a situation where it results in wiping out. Now, there is an issue. 2 days back only, I think Juhi Chawla has filed a writ on this 5G thing. Now, there are some health side effects. There are various aspects. You have to see an issue from multiple angles. A 5G option is definitely important when it comes to provision and advancement of services. If you have to grow your IoT, if you have to grow your AI, you have to see more innovations getting used in our daily lives. A 5G will take us to another level. But it is anticipated, it is apprehended. These fears have also disturbed the telecom sector in the past also. The fears of health, whether it will have an impact on the health with the 5G radiation. There was even articles which read that the 5G was the cause of the coronavirus in China. That might be, we don't know. So then that's another angle. Then probably a 5G spectrum may come and interfere with the broadcast spectrum. So it might be directly militating against the broadcast business. So it all depends upon which sector you are representing. No, everyone would be right in their own space. But ultimately, we have to see that how all sectors can coexist, how the health of people can be protected if there is a valid argument on that, and how the society and the benefit of the society, the public good, can be taken to another level because of the actions taken at the public policy level from the government, from the executive, from the government. So I think that's the long and short of a journey of a public policy professional. And I can only wish you all, you're very fortunate and good luck. I have a time constraint. I would have actually loved to go more, but I'll just cut short on this and I'll take up any questions if somebody wants to ask any questions on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And we all understand, and thank you for making out time even in that busy thing across where one is ending at 4 and the other is starting at 5. So we totally appreciate that, sir. And personally, I'll tell you, the legal side and my first project at my law school was the WLL and the CDMA technology. So I just got a revision of exactly what was there across. So even that was argued at whether the CDMA and the GSM, which will come, and then Reliance coming with CDMA technology, the code divisional maps, multiple access with that point. Now, for the questions at the chat box, we're getting with the questions and the live chat box at the YouTube.
CDMA was sold in the, it's being told to be more cost effective.
Yeah.
Because the advantage of the CDMA was that you could have lesser number of towers.
Yeah. It was a more or a land wire thing that was connected across. So that was
the matter that as a technology it failed. Yeah. Because the quality of service got dropped.
Yeah.
When ultimately Reliance introduced it. Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
No, so perfectly. I guess that was just an addition to what the thing was. So I just got my revision for my law days. So thank you so much. The questions that have been popping, so I'll take like a couple of them have been very common, and this relates to what you are. So one question is that, sir, how legal field helps you in taking the policy field? Is it helpful more, or it's just the policy course can also help you across with the same?
See, legal field is really helpful because I think that's the foundation. Ultimately, it's your constitutional your understanding of the Constitution. If at all know the subject, but understanding of the Constitution is very important because that completely structures the way the entire government, a central government or a state government, which would be the body with whom you would be interacting ultimately. So you need to know how exactly the decision making happens, how exactly the things flow. That is very fundamental to this. And secondly, a legal, being a law graduate also helps in having a rational, a justification, a more, because you end up reading a lot of judgment, which you otherwise will have to read separately. And you are familiar with a lot of legal principles, which have evolved over a period of time. So that gives an edge when you are coming up with your advocacy, when you are coming up with your argument. I've seen this disadvantage because, do I tell you, the public policy professionals were definitely at a more senior position compared to a legal person. There are more qualities that you need to develop. You need to be you need to be good at socializing. You need to be well connected. You should be accepted, and acceptance cannot come just because you go and give a Diwali gift, or it can only come with with the kind of knowledge, with the kind of discussion, with the kind of intellectual intellectual discussion you are able to take it with senior people. Nobody appreciates, and it's all your thought process. So you need to have that, and that thought process gets catapulted with the legal education also. And that's an edge because ultimately you are trained, you know how the law flows and what you need to look at, and you know how exactly it can be structured. Your arguments can be structured. So that's what, my response would be, that it definitely is a plus point. I would say that public policy would be more of a species, and legal education would be the genus, because the other qualities are more of individual personal qualities which you develop, which you may possess. But that's exactly what you should try to learn in this course, that what exactly those people who were instrumental in getting a policy decision at some point of time, what exactly they would have done, how they would have approached, how the arguments would have been put. It is the same thing. Like if you see even a lawyer arguing in a court, he's equally a public policy professional, because he's trying to connect to the judge with the argument, and that he's trying to say that, see, this is the way, this is the justification for the entire thing. He needs to bring some humor. He needs to, say that, how he can comfort the situation for facilitating what he wants to achieve.
Yeah. No, sir. Thank you. I guess that was a wonderful answer. And if I can just curtail down what he just said, was number one was reasoning and the connect. That are the two things which I guess a lawyer or a law student inculcates in itself in the 5 years or 3 years of teaching itself. So thank you, sir, for that wonderful answer. We'll take one more question, and I guess we have this question, so it's more towards the remuneration, but I'll take this question on this behalf that can these students of public policy be fortunate enough to learn under your able guidance through their internships or anything? Is there any possibility, Rajkumar?
Yeah. So, I'm internships, you're most welcome anytime. And, internships can definitely be taken. There is no problem. We can connect with me. It's subject to, we have some slots of interns which we can accommodate. And, we'll definitely be, I'll be able to take it up with the HR and my team members to accommodate that. So we can definitely look forward for that.
Sure,
but yeah,
sir, I'll get,
see, but it will be more of a learning opportunity. It definitely, I
was just about to add the same thing, that's the part which we were looking for. That's not the earning one, but the earning with an L. That was a learning capacity that has to be developed. Because I'll tell you why I was asking this question, or why this question was raised even. It's more towards the public policies. The corporate side of the public policy needs to be known to countrymen and especially to the students who are pursuing this particular course. So the opportunities are vast. It's just upon that they need to get across and look wonderfully. Like I would cite your example, like being in Samsung, being in Airtel, being in the cable network, and then coming to the media network, and then here also you were there with the legal side, and now taking the policy side. So that's where the advancement comes in. So one last question is in relation to the capacity in which we have seen generally the public policy professionals in the corporate houses. And you said also one line there, they are given a higher position compared to the legal or the general counsels. Any specific reason or why is this so?
I won't say there is any. So I tell you, general counsel sometimes are also the policy heads also.
Yeah.
In some places you have a separate, and I've seen this, and it depends upon the organization. There is nothing. The only reason probably public policy are given a little bit more priority to some extent is because the subject which they deal with is always close to the heart of the management. It is close to the it is going to be the decision maker of how the business will go on, and it will have a huge impact on the entire thing. And because the skill set which you have, and you can't be a public policy, a transactional lawyer need not be a public policy professional. He may not equally possess the skills to be a public policy professional, because that requires a separate set of. As a transactional lawyer, you will be more focused on certain clauses. So let's say if you're working on a contract, you will be more focused on negotiating on various terms of the contract and saying that getting it to the best advantage of that particular transaction, and you will only limit it to that. Similarly, if it is a litigation, it can be an adversarial inter-party litigation. It might help, and that is not going to. These are issues. These are like routine transactional risk which any company suffers, whereas a public policy professional is dealing with something which would actually change the course, the way entire thing is done, the entire perspective, whatever you never, and that's the more liberal thought process which you will have. So, and don't go with positions or anything. It should excite you is what is most important. What excites you? If it doesn't excite you, then there's no point. Because it has to excite you that, yes, I am representing, I am doing something. And if I am getting an opportunity to represent my company and be the voice of my company with respect to the issues which would ultimately govern and help the business of the company, that should give you the pleasure and joy. And even if you are doing a normal other transactional, that so it's not that general counsels are not valued, they are equally valued. And in fact, sometimes many of these things come to them. But to have that typical lack of being a public policy professional needs something more than that. Definitely. So that's something over and above. That's an additional skill set, which a general counsel may have or may not have. But a public policy professional can never say that, no, he doesn't possess those, he doesn't possess those qualities. So that's what the difference is. I don't agree that, they are highly placed or somebody is low. I don't think that's the way we should look at it. It should never matter. In fact, if that is the thing in your mind, then you try to become a promoter on your own. Try to become an entrepreneur on your own. Start your business. Have that mindset that I have come what may I'm going to do that. I'm able to. Your risk potential should be higher. You can take the risk calls on behalf of a public on behalf of an entrepreneur. You can suggest, but to take them on your own is a different ball game altogether. If you're thinking it, then you should think of becoming a CEO. Then. If you have such
I would think that would be a perfect answer. That if the money is there on your mind, you should better be an entrepreneur or a CEO rather than take it. Yeah. That's a wonderful answer. And I will not take much time on the Jeff. This is about the time. We have a couple of more minutes. So I'll take this opportunity to thank you. I know, Rajkumar sir, that was a wonderful session. And personally, I'm telling you things of my areas, my interest. Being an IPR student, working on my projects that were more related to telecoms, and just to listen, especially from you, who has got so wide experience in this particular area. Thank you so much for making this today. Thank you for delivering that words of wisdom that we were looking for. And believe me, out of these 19 sessions in the past that we have managed to make across, very soon planning for our Silver Jubilee session as well. This is the first time I'm getting a counsel or legal background. So my level of happiness is also getting on a very higher point across. I guess if we can take one more question, which has just popped up. So would that be fine, Rajkumar sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is question by Abhinav there. Sir, do faster rate of growth, or Abhinav, do one thing. Can you just on your webcam and unmute yourself and ask the question directly to sir? Why don't you do that?
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead, Abhinav.
So my question is, whenever a new product or a service is being launched in a market, or a company emerges who has better and more innovative ideas, which are good for the customer and are more consumer friendly. So why is it that they get suppressed by the existing marketing policies? Because everyone understands public policy, and
so do you have some example for this? Then why do you feel that why do you feel that is the case? Why do you feel that way? To my mind, if there is an idea like Oyo, the guy who started, and look at the age of that entrepreneur, he's just 26, 27, and at this age, and what was he 6 years back? And one of my very close colleagues is working as he's at a senior position in the legal department there. Today he's affording his salary and maybe salaries of many other people like him. And look at the kind of money which he has generated. Look at the kind of contribution to the economy he's making. So why do you feel that there can be someone who might have failed, but that's never the case. That's never the case. There are failures. Failures do happen. Failure is a part and parcel of life. But success is also, we must learn from those success examples. But if there is anything in particular, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, I was just about to give example of GST. GST was a proposal which was long drawn out. It was in the starting of 1990s, and it stretched out till now, till 2015. So we know that it could simplify the tax regime. However, even though it is not applied well right now, but yes, we can see that it has far-reaching implications which can improve the taxation system of India. Yet, due to the politics, it was not implemented earlier. So, sir, and that was my question. Why does this happen? That certain good schemes, good policies get subdued.
I think there is equally complaints about the GST the way it is. In fact, if you see, there are a lot of evils attached to it. You might have to pay GST for a bill which was just raised, but for which you never got paid for, and you might never even get a refund. It is on an advance basis. It facilitates and helps the government in some manner. So I see this is very generic. I mean to say, we can't say that GST is good. That's one thought process. There can be another way of another school of thought which would say that GST is a disaster. There's another, and there will be enough economic and legal and other arguments to justify that. So as long as there is in any decision making, no decision making, let me assure you that it won't be it can escape from any objections or any shortfalls or anything. Some things which we take, decisions which we take for over a period of time, it is much later that we realize that it's a disaster. And this is always a part and parcel of any political process, that a decision taken by one political thought is objected to by the other side of the, they always oppose, and they everyone, that's the way it works here. So, but how does it matter for you? Why, don't get emotional on this, that why it didn't happen earlier, why it happened now, why it got late. You should not be affected with all this. You should be only, you can't control a lot of things. Okay, if you get emotional, get attached to the entire thing, then of course, you won't be able to find the right answer. You need to find answers by saying that, all right, now it has happened. What does your client want, or what does you want? How exactly it's going to suit you? And of course, it needs to have an argument of a public good. How are you going to justify it? And if there are shortfalls, then how to address them? You can't have, now if you see this farm laws, there's so much opposition happening. There's so much negativity which is going on. There's so many other, so many other things which are happening. But best approach as a public policy professional, if I would have been in the government, is definitely is not to sit onto that, and would have to go back to those people and check where exactly, and get the things on merits and address each one of them one by one. If you really believe so much into the farm laws which were brought into effect, then say that how it can be defended. And if there is a valid reason that this should not be, there is some, then have that generosity to accept that this can be corrected, or this will be addressed over a period of time. That's the way to approach. A solution-oriented approach is what is required. Otherwise, there is no regime which is good or bad here. I don't see, everything is good, and it all depends upon the way you see it and what suits you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know whether I've been able to fully answer you, but that's
No, Rajkumar sir, that was a wonderful answer as well. So that was one thing, that then approach towards a problem. I guess that's also one of the things that a policy person, not only for drafting of the policy, but also the implementation and the result of how it well implemented. Aadhaar, we can make it as best example. When launched, or Metro, when launched at Delhi, worked well, policy got well, replicated to other states. Dispute can be there whether Madhya Pradesh or Bhopal requires a metro or not. You can have two sets of schools. One says yes, the other says development, urbanization, and other things can be there. So thank you so much, Abhinav, for that wonderful question. And thank you, Rajkumar sir. Now just a minute left before I'll take your leave and will not be there with your next meeting across. So thank you so much on behalf of Jagran School for Public Policy and International Affairs, on behalf of these young policy minds here, to address them, to give them this wonderful thought and the more practical and the experience things over the policy which you have gained. And on behalf of my entire university, on my personal behalf as well, I would like to thank you for coming and just addressing. I agree that these tough times are there where we are addressing it on the virtual way. We are privileged to host you on the physical thing as well. And with that, aura of yours should also be traveling in that room itself, where those young policy minds can learn a lot. And I'll also try my law students to be there in that room, so that they can also get that particular thing and how those things will be taken. So thank you so much, Rajkumar sir.
Thank you.
And this was a pleasure to have you and to hear on the public policy approach through that legal angle. Yes, personally enjoyed a lot, and I'm pretty hopeful that these young policy minds have taken those particular angles. I'll surely write to you if any of the possibilities comes for these students to get in touch with you, to learn under your mentorship for the public policy domain as well.
Thank you so much, Raju. Take care and stay safe, all of you.
You too, sir. Thank you so much, sir.